Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Chocolate Saiyan, Sleeping Warrior, and Arwin. How are you all doing?
All good.
Hello.
Waiting for Magic Mick and his magic mathematics to join. Seems to be laying the smack down and demanding that we produce evidence or mathematics that he would consider to be part of his calculator, even though it's his calculator that we're asserting is wrong. The way I see it is, it's not our obligation to do that, Michael. It's your obligation to get it right, not our obligation to correct it.
I agree.
Indeed. Burden shifting.
Yep. He said earlier on as well, Nath, that he didn't want to join in something that wasn't really clear. Perhaps it would be prudent if we re-outlined the clarity of the case for him so he has no excuse.
Excellent idea.
So, screen share. For the benefit of Mick West, who claims that he doesn't like to join shows that he doesn't have a lot of clarity on, let's be very clear, Michael. Here is your clarity. Case against you is given a matter number, Mick West 1. It should actually be Mick West 2 because this is the second time we've come across you. It's in the flat court. It's the Crown or the Queen or the people or the state against Mick West. And he's charged with negligence. In English law, this is obviously a bit satirical. It's not meant to be serious, but it's meant to plant a seed, if nothing more. But in English law, to prove a case of negligence, one has to prove that there is a duty of care, there is a breach of duty, and the subsequent breach has caused a loss. So, first point is there a duty to take care against the defendant? And in English law, the duty of care comes from the Donahue against Stevenson principle, and Lord Atkin said in it, quote, "The rule that you are to love thy neighbour becomes in law you must not injure your neighbour. And the lawyer's question is, who is my neighbour, receives a restricted reply. You must take reasonable care to avoid acts or omissions which you can reasonably foresee would be likely to injure your neighbour. Who then in law?" What?
I don't want to disturb you, but no, Mick is saying that he's trying to join, but link is empty or something. Like, I guess
Right.
the
So he's
link's
got the
not
old
working
link.
for him. Yeah.
Right, Mick, what we could do with, we need a one-way communication to get you the link. So if you could provide a public, just what is the best way that we can email you or something, send you a message with the link in it, because we don't want the link going public because it'll just get trolled. So if Nathan administers the link bit, and I'll carry on. So, you must take reasonable care to avoid acts or omissions which you can reasonably foresee would be likely to injure your neighbour. Who then in law is my neighbour? The answer seems to be, in this case, the people that go on the internet and look at the Metabunk curve calculator and think that we live on a sphere Earth. Or the persons that are so closely and directly affected by my act that I ought reasonably to have them in contemplation as being so affected when I am directing my mind to the acts or omissions which are called in question. Mr. West has breached his duty of care by failing to inform visitors to his Metabunk curve calculator for the amount of obstruction that you would see if we lived on a spherical Earth, in that he did not advise visitors that the height of the target you are looking for obstruction of is not the actual height of the target. It is the apparent height of the target the hidden value should be attributed against. This has a large net effect, as the hidden value would then be attributed to a much smaller target, and in many cases hide the targets behind the Earth's curve and totally out of sight for you to even apply any hidden values to. The defendant has caused damage to the world at large by misrepresenting his model, by failing to inform balltards that perspective adjustments must be made, and to apply the hidden values to the actual height means the distance to the objects must therefore be 0. The case for the prosecution claims, quote, losses to humanity to be assessed by the court for making people believe that we live on a spinning ball falsely. I think that's pretty clear, Mick. Don't really see any wriggle room there for discussion or debate against the idea that it's not clear.
He provided an email, I think.
Have a look. I'm assuming that Nathan's not here, probably gone for a wee.
No, I've just literally fired it off to him.
So, Mick, you have your link. And if he does actually join, me and Nathan have already said what roles we'll play, and basically I'll kind of like lead. And then when it comes to the discussion and the debate bit, Nathan will then present the position. Mick will respond however he sees fit. And then we will leave the decision whether there's been naughties told to the audience who are watching.
Hey, Mick.
Hello.
Hello. How are we?
Jolly good.
We meet again.
So to speak. All right. So I joined in case people want to ask me some specific questions. You know, I said before, like I would talk if you explained what you thought was my curve calculator should actually do. And I'd be happy to get into technical details, but other than that, here I am.
All right. Well, kudos for turning up. I didn't think you actually would. So, there's, I don't know, Nathan, should we deal with 3 issues or should we deal with the one main one?
I think all 3.
Okay. So, if I screen share my screen, Nath?
Yeah, you're up.
Click the thumbnail at the bottom of the screen, Mick. You should see my screen.
I see some screens. I don't know what we're looking at here.
Just click the one that says
Sleeping,
sleeping
is it?
locally.
Yes.
All right, so you want me to click on that? All right, I see my curve calculator. Jolly good.
Great. There's three main issues that we want to discuss.
Uh-huh.
You made a reference in. Let me see if I still have it open. Hang on. Let me minimize that. You made a reference in this message that says all light rays are straight, ignoring refraction for now.
That's true.
All light rays go through pinhole lenses. You create it, but with reference to number 1, all light rays are straight. In your curve calculator, you say that the light rays are subject to an arc, which creates a curve.
Well, that's not ignoring refraction. You see, there's two sets of results. Above that, you've got results ignoring refraction, and then you've got results with standard refraction. And what I'm talking about here is the first set, the ones that are ignoring refraction.
So these ones are geometric, correct?
Yes, exactly. Just using straight lines for light.
So with regards to light, what's the authority for making light bend at the rate of 7/6 the times of the...
Well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the results ignoring refraction.
Sure, but on your website you cite this bendy light period.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. That's not the topic. We're talking about what happens when
that's exactly what we're doing. Why are you telling us what we are talking about? He is very specifically talking about that, Mick.
Well, you can talk about whatever you like. But
That's right, we can. We are, and we're talking specifically about 7/6R radius that's been asserted on your website. That's where we're starting. You can address it or not. That's up to you.
All right, well, the 7/6R is just a standard rule of thumb that's been used by surveyors by about 100 years. It's an approximation, and it's based on what the average amount of refraction would be if you assume a standard atmosphere, which is kind of a hypothetical state of the atmosphere, which is, I think 18 degrees C at sea level and a standard lapse rate. it's something that in reality you're never going to see exactly, but it's a useful rule of thumb for telling you approximately how much refraction you're going to get. And if you look at any old book on surveying, you'll see this being discussed. There's a few variants of it because it is just a rule of thumb, but it's basically just something that surveyors use for a simple correction for refraction.
Okay. So in this paragraph here, you state that standard refraction, which relates to the paragraph here, they're both correct,
Yeah.
is an approximation of the refraction expected under standard atmospheric conditions.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah. And when you click into this, we can see that the 4 variables that indicate the standard atmospheric atmosphere are temperature, altitude, pressure, and the ideal gas law in molar form. However, on your calculator, you give it the value of 76R. Shouldn't you, if you were basing your maths on what you've just cited, shouldn't you be talking about the 4 variables that I've just identified rather than 7/6 of a hypothetical radius?
No, because all it is just a rule of thumb, assuming the standard values for those.
I don't really understand the citation, Mick. Sorry,
But
you keep saying it's a rule of thumb, but I'm a bit unclear. Why have you got a citation then?
Yeah, you've cited it from the standard atmospheric conditions, but when you go into them standard atmospheric conditions, it bears no resemblance whatsoever to what you claim. It does.
Well, I'm not sure I understand your objection here. Do you know?
That's all right, I can reiterate it. He's asking you why you have provided a citation to something that bears absolutely no reference to the 2 numbers and the presuppositional value of R that you actually present in the calculation. Do you understand now?
Yeah, I think so. I think
excellent.
The reason I gave you the reason I mentioned the standard atmosphere is just basically to explain what it's based on. It's just the average state of the atmosphere.
Sorry, he's just pointed out to you that it's not based on that and it's based on a 76R value.
Yeah, I suggest that you would cite that to give credibility to your assertion, which is based on a presupposition of an apparent radius that you admit is apparent, but nobody else can find any evidence of. But you make it seem credible by citing something rather than nothing.
Isn't apparent evidence in itself? Because if something is apparent, then that's how it appears to be. And if that's how it appears to be, that's the evidence of it being.
It's apparent.
If you can see something, then that's evidence of it existing. If it is apparently in front of you, then isn't that evidence that it's in front of you? If you see a tree in front of you, it's just apparently there.
No, that would be physically there, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't know. You'd go and check, wouldn't you?
Sorry, Anthony, sorry.
You see that tree outside your window? Is it actually there? Do you know it's there? Have you been to check it?
So we're dealing with apparent things, I see. Okay, Mick.
So my second point in that is that if you were basing your maths or your standard refraction on the thing that you say that you
I'm not basing it on that. I'm just using the rule of thumb as in.
Sorry, why the hell do you cite it then? That was his original question.
Why have you cited this when it isn't referencing it?
Can you bring up the citation again, Anthony? Can we just see what Mick West has just told the audience is a rule of thumb and has absolutely nothing to do with the citation? Can we see the fallacious citation?
Yeah, I think actually if you click on where it says C
I wasn't talking to you, Mick. I was asking Anthony if you can show us the fallacious assertions that you have linked to your rule of thumb. And I assume it is your rule of thumb, correct?
Actually, no, it's not my rule of thumb. If you go back to the curve calculator, you'll see there's a link that says here. It's the word here. It's underlined. If you click on that.
Yeah, but that's not referencing, that's talking about actual atmospheric conditions can vary, right? But your citation refers to this. That's what I'm asking you is if you did mean to say...
Well, it's on the next line. It's just kind of related.
Sorry, I don't really understand that term. Does kind of relate? Can you clarify what you mean by does kind of relate? Because I'm a little bit unclear what that kind of terminology actually means, Mick.
Mick, you've got standard refraction with capital letters at the beginning, and then you've identified it or given it a definition here, which
I like to use capitals. It doesn't actually mean anything. I use capitals.
Yeah, it does. It means that you've given. If you look at any concordance or any legal journal, if this...
Well, you'll notice that I use capitals on all of the things above, like refracted, horizon.
Why would you not do it with a capital R?
Where's that? Oh, dear. Because that's not actually... that's just a
It seems to me that you've made up a phrase.
I think perhaps I could edit my page to make it look a bit prettier. But anyway.
Yeah, and I would suggest that you should edit this line as well, because it doesn't appear to be based on the standard atmospheric condition whatsoever. It appears to be.
No, but that line is just telling you what standard refraction actually is.
Yes, but you've got standard refraction here, and then you define it underneath.
Okay, so you're confused by...
He's not confused. He's telling you what is actually stated on your website. Don't accuse him of being confused about anything. He's not confused, and I'm keeping up. Nobody's confused here. The only person that seems to be confused, Nick, is you about the tidiness of your own damn website, and we seem to be having to advise you on it. So don't tell us about who's confused, okay?
Well, you do seem confused.
Mick,
No, well, your assertions about whether or not you think we are confused will be very shortly wrapped up and put to bed. We are not.
Okay.
Yeah, appearances can be deceiving.
Right, like the apparent size of things into the distance, which we will get to shortly, Mick.
All right, well, let me just check. You understand what the standard atmosphere is?
yes,
Okay,
we have it on screen now.
Right.
Standard atmosphere has 4 variables. They're highlighted in blue. Can you see them?
Okay. Yeah, but I'm not referring to like standard variations in the atmosphere. I'm referring to I guess that would be like number 2 down there.
So why have you cited it in your definition then?
Well, it's because a lot of people don't understand what standard would mean in this context. They think it means...
This isn't in this context. Why are you asserting that is in the context of a 76R radius, which has nothing to do with your assertion or citation?
Mick, you actually said before that it's what all the surveyors use. Why don't you change this bit to say standard refraction is what all the surveyors use, rather than citing it to a web reference that doesn't actually make any, there's no familiarity with it?
Because I explain it all in the link that's below that.
No, you're citing that website as being your comparison.
No, I wasn't citing any website.
You are. That's exactly what the link does. You click it and it takes you to your citation.
Under the standard atmospheric condition. Why does that exist and it bear no resemblance to it whatsoever?
No resemblance to what? I mean, you know what? Standard refraction is just a standard temperature and a standard lapse rate.
Well,
so it's a model of the atmosphere that you can use for simple calculations.
You appear to be confused. You've cited this page as being the basis for your calculation for standard refraction. However, it bears absolutely no resemblance whatsoever to this, and there is no reference of a radius.
Is explaining what the standard atmosphere is.
Let me show you something else that's interesting on this citation that you've referenced. If I type in the word radius, there are 0 references to the radius in this document that you've cited. Your standard refraction is based on. It's fallacious, Mick.
Yeah, but it tells you the...
No, but you've cited that your standard refraction is based on nonsense, that it isn't. Mick, it's not referencing correctly at all. It is nothing to do with that page. You've made it up and you've said that it's credited by this and it isn't.
Well, let me ask you a question. Suppose you wanted to figure out...
No, don't ask him a question. Address why your rule of thumb has cited this page.
If I did that for my math...
Anthony, hold on. Let him answer. You have used a rule of thumb and you have put a fallacious citation, and now we want to know why.
Oh, I've explained why. You just don't understand.
No, I do understand. It's fallacious.
Well, explain it again. Hold on, Anthony. Hold on, Anthony.
Why are you asking?
Hold on, Anthony.
Because
then explain it again. Maybe we are confused. I'm sure a better explanation or a more coherent explanation or a more succinct explanation will be needed for us.
Here for discussion of this approximation.
Yes.
Go on then.
I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in why you've linked this phrase to...
Well, it's explained in that discussion.
No, I don't care. You've got this here.
But I'm trying to explain it to you, and you just said you don't care what the explanation is?
No, because you've defined it here on this line that there's no resemblance.
What are you asking? If you want me to explain it, but you don't...
I'll ask it again. We are asking you why you have put a totally erroneous link next to a 76R value, which you now call a rule of thumb. In other words, it bears no link to the cited information. Why have you done this?
Well, you're refusing to click on the cited information.
Right, let me give you a different example, right, to make my point, because it's clearly not going in this, and I really want to nail this home.
No,
it's all right. Just take your time, Anthony. Maybe he's confused. So just speak a little bit slower. He's obviously confused.
And in that link, and you're just refusing to click on the link because you know that the actual explanation is in there. I can't even remember what's in that page, but I'm pretty sure it's a good explanation.
Okay, so if I turn my
I'm
screen
gonna
share
check
off
on
a
it,
sec.
yeah.
Right, so you can see my screen now. Can you see
I
me?
can see
Nick?
you. I can see
Right.
you.
You see this book?
Street on Tort, 12th edition.
By
Seems like
John
a bunch of legal nonsense, which is completely irrelevant here, Anthony.
I'm sorry, we're not calling your mathematics nonsense now. Let's not get ad hominem attacks. He's using a reference, just let him use it. You have used a reference that cites nothing to do with the
We're not
7/6R
talking-
radius, and then you've given us a load of gish gallop and told us that you've already explained it. So, Mick, please can you just shut your mouth and listen to what he's got to say, please? We've listened to your nonsense. It didn't actually make any connection between the 7/6R that you give and the actual citation you provide, okay?
You didn't click on the citation, so how would you know?
I watched him click on it. What the hell are you talking
did.
about?
The word here, there's a link there that links to a thread on Metabunk that discusses in great depth where the 7/6R comes from.
Sorry, a discussion thread? That's your
Yes,
citation,
exactly.
a discussion
With
thread on your own
reference, with
website.
reference.
Sorry, just let me get clarity. The link that goes to here is a discussion thread on your website. Is that your citation to prove the
No, where
connection
it says-
between 7/6R and a rather official-looking, detailed explanation about what a standard atmosphere? Are you saying that a discussion thread on your own website is a credited citation for that?
No, it's not. It's
Right, so why the hell are you telling us to click on it? What is your malfunction? You have provided a totally erroneous
I've provided
citation
you a
for your rule of
collection of
thumb nonsense.
citations.
Why are you talking? I'm asserting something, that you have provided a totally erroneous link to your bullshit 7/6R rule of thumb.
Well, should I link directly to all of the references that are in the thread? It would kind of clutter
No,
up the
you
page.
should
rather
link
than
to
not.
something that which is accurate. Let me again, standard refraction, you've put in capitals here and in here. So in this line here, you are referencing the line above because you've defined it with a quotation mark and capitals. But when you click this bit, it makes no resemblance whatsoever to the citation that you claim it's based on. What you should be saying is standard refraction is what all the surveyors rely on, and I've just copied them because that is what it's
Click on
based
the
on.
link. Click on the link where it says here.
No, that's not what you're citing for there. Where you've got the word here, this here is referring to this line, which says actual atmospheric conditions can vary. I'm not bothered about them. I'm bothered about this standard refraction nonsense that
All
you're
right.
citing.
The standard refraction is an approximation, and it
Yeah.
says, see here for discussion of this
No, it
approximation.
doesn't. It says standard refraction is an approximation of the
Well,
refraction
I
expected.
know. And on the next line, it says, see here
It
for
doesn't.
discussion of this
I've
approximation.
already established with you that a discussion on your website is not a valid citation. Why are you chuckling? It's not a valid
Because
citation.
because it contains citations. If you
No,
click on it,
Mick,
So
you
why
will
didn't you
see-
just put them? Why didn't you just put the valid citation in your click here button rather than a link to your own discussion thread?
Mick, this link that you're asking
click
me
on
to
it?
click relates to this sentence.
What are you afraid of, Anthony? What are you
No,
afraid
I have
of?
no issue with this sentence. My
Well,
issue
what about
is
the
with the
next
sentence
sentence?
above it.
What about the next sentence?
I have no issue with it, but it's a
You're
distraction.
not moving on. You're not moving on to the next sentence.
No, because I have no
Sorry.
issue with that.
You want to talk
Issue
about the
is-
approximation? Is that what you're saying?
The issue is here with your cited reference that
So
does
you
not.
want to talk about the standard refraction is an approximation? Is that the issue?
No, it's the link
No.
that follows the approximation you claim it's based on. This bit.
Okay.
You've
So
got
you
the
don't.
link here.
You're not interested in the actual approximation itself.
I have no issue with this sentence. That
This
link
is-
here is not a problem for me. I accept that.
Well, why
However,
can't you click on it?
because the citation that you're citing is here, that I do have a problem with.
All right. What was your problem with it?
That you said before that it was what all the surveyors use. That is
It
what
is,
you
and
should be writing
what,
here.
Yeah, that's what. If you click on here, that
No,
explains.
you haven't cited the here bit for there. You've said this is an approximation of refraction expected
I
under
think
this
you
link
can't-
here.
You can't go
and it
around in
isn't.
circles here.
No, I'm not going in circles. You're obfuscating.
All right,
This
well,
bears
you-
no
you want to-
resemblance to
You want me
standard.
to edit? You want me to edit the page so that the here is on the previous line, and then you can click on it?
No. We'd like to know why you're using 7/6R. So, before you came on the show, I had a condition too. Bring proof of R, Mick. So, I think we can move on to the second point, which is
Well,
the
hang
actual
on, just before
R
we do, Nate. Wait, just before we do, he was just getting there. He asked, "What did I want him to do?" You said that this bit referenced this what it's what all the surveyors use. What you're asking me, what do I want you to do? Change it so that it says standard refraction is what all the surveyors use, and remove the connection to the standard atmospheric conditions that your claim of 76R is based not on, because it isn't based on that, Mick.
But if you clicked on where it says "see here," that's all explained.
Yeah, but that relates to that
Right,
sentence.
sorry.
Which I don't have a
Why are you
problem with.
circle jerking us around constantly, Mick? What is your malfunction? Right, you've asked
Well,
him what he wants. You put the shoe on his
You
foot.
seem to be,
Mick,
you seem to be
stop interrupting me,
refusing to look
please.
at the
Can you stop
actual
interrupting me,
See that
please?
character there? That's a
Mick,
full stop. and a
Anthony,
new
hold
line,
on. I want to get
not
to a
repeating the
concession.
previous sentence.
You have put the shoe on Anthony's foot and you have said, what do you want me to do? Now he has told you. So how do you address that?
I'm not doing that because that's just silly. Because if you look at that sentence, it's an approximation.
Just silly.
And then it says, see
Okay,
here for
Mick.
discussion.
It's all right. Let's put the steam back in your ears. Your reasonable explanation for keeping in a totally fallacious link is that it's just silly. Okay,
Yeah.
I think we can move on. So
We can move on. Right, now let's focus on this bit here. Nath?
yes, Mick. So you
Lowercase, you don't like the lowercase?
I don't care. You haven't let me finish my first breath of this sentence in this regard. So, Mick, we have an R value, yes? And I would like you to demonstrate your scientific evidence of this R value.
But I don't have any in the...
Well, why are you using it then? I thought the ball was backed by scientific evidence. We are told continually that the whole body of science backs this nonsense.
Let me explain what I'm using that value of R for.
That's not what I asked. I don't care what you're using it for. I'm asking what your scientific evidence of the value is.
I'm just using the one that scientists use.
Sorry? You're telling me that your proof is a consensus from men? Science is a method. Do you understand what science actually is, Mick?
Is a model of...
No, science is not a model. Science is a method, you idiot. So, I'll ask you again, or maybe you need an explanation because you're a bit confused. Do you understand what science is?
Science is an approximation of...
No, science is a method.
Well, the scientific method is a method,
Correct.
but science itself...
No, science is a method. That is science.
Right.
Yes, right. That's what science is. I will ask my question again, Mick. Now you've obfuscated a little bit. So, back to the R value. Apparently, the globe is backed by science. Now I would like to know what your scientific evidence for that value of R is, please.
Well, that's irrelevant, though, because all I'm using...
You are basing the entire calculation on this R value. In your hand-scribbled notes left in one of the comments, presumably by your own hand, it had approximately 9 references to this R value, Mick. So why would you assert that it's irrelevant?
Well, you can actually put in whichever R value you like if you...
Sorry, do we not have a fixed value of R?
No, it's not fixed, actually. It's very...
So the Earth changes shape periodically, does it?
Calculator.
I'm sorry, does your belief in the Earth that is spherical change shape at any time, Mick?
Change shape, no.
Yes, change shape.
Or size.
I.e. the radius value that you plug into your calculator.
Well, the calculator is a particular
Sorry, you
scientific
don't seem
model.
to be
It's a very, very
answering
popular
my
one,
question.
and it works very well.
Does the radius value for Earth, which is what you use that calculator for, ever change? Ever?
Yeah, it does actually, because...
When on Earth, does the sphere Earth physically change shape and size?
It doesn't physically change, but it changes...
So it does not change. So that R radius value that you use, we can just assert here and now that it's fixed, can we?
Yes, 395...
Excellent. Now we have a fixed value of R, so don't quite understand why you obfuscated and told me that it could be changed. It seems you were, what was the word you used? Confused. Right, Mick?
Changed in real life.
Were you confused about changing Earth's radius value? Were you confused
No,
about
I'm
that?
just saying that the
pretty interesting,
calculator
but-
lets you change it, so you can
Yeah,
do...
well, we got around that little bit of obfuscation, so back to my original question, Mick. What is your scientific evidence for the value of R? You take your time, Mick. I'm looking for scientific evidence.
I'm just using the standard size
You're
of the Earth.
manipulating the radius of the Earth to satisfy the notion that it appears to look flat, but you want it to be a ball.
Well, what value of R would create a flat Earth? It would have to be rather
One that's
large.
significantly bigger.
A flat Earth wouldn't have a R. The maths
Exactly,
just has this
exactly.
presuppositional value inserted to the same
So-
measurements that we take, Mick. So I'll ask you again,
This is
what's
an
your
assumption.
scientific
I'm
evidence?
assuming that the Earth is round.
You
and
keep
I'm
interrupting me,
assuming-
Mick. Can you
Assuming-
shut your mouth?
There's a certain-
Thanks to the
And
Afterlife
it's
Now
just
from
said
Super
that
Chat.
Nathan
Mick,
said that he is
This is
assuming
what
that the Earth
results
is
would
round.
be.
Mick, I'm asking you a question. I'd like an answer. What is your scientific evidence for the value of R?
He has just answered you, Nate. He said that he's assuming that the Earth is round.
I don't
Sorry,
understand-
he said it's an assumption. Your whole calculator is based on an assumption. You're having a laugh, right? This is backed
Well,
by
no,
science, isn't
Of
it?
course, you need scientific evidence.
You need
for
scientific
R.
evidence
You
for
need
this
to have
stuff if it's
proof for
asserted
it
by
because
science.
You're basing your
That's not what-
calculations on it.
That's not what the calculator is for. The calculator is using the standard model of the Earth.
Right. So, what is your proof for the standard model of Earth?
Yeah, the R value
not-
specifically.
Which
That's not
R
what
is
I'm giving you
included.
here.
I'm not giving us science. You're joking. But there's a lot of baltards out there that seem to think you are giving them science, Mick.
No, this actually the calculator gives you a you can it's a way of checking the standard model. So you,
Sorry, the standard model is based on an assumption. So is it a way of double checking an assumption?
yeah,
It's a way of double checking an assumption. So it's essentially useless.
Yeah.
no, it's actually extremely useful. I use
Sorry, what is the use of double checking an assumption? What on earth are you talking about, you blithering idiot? What are you talking about? What are you on about?
A concept.
Hang on,
Can
hang
you
on.
talk-
One at a
can you
time.
talk one at a time, please. Yeah. So thanks, Anthony. The use of
You're just stuttering. What is the point of double checking an assumption?
You said it yourself. It was based on an assumption. You assume that we live on a sphere. You said it yourself.
yes, I do. I assume we live on a sphere. And
Right, so there's no science behind this whatsoever. It's based on Mick West's assumption. You're having a laugh, aren't you, fella?
we can
What, are you just stuttering again? Are you having a laugh? I've had a lot of baltards assert that this is science, my friend.
the best way of checking it that I've found is to use a distant island.
But
Find
you're
an
not-
island.
What the hell are you talking about? I want to know what your scientific evidence of R is, and you have asserted that this is a goddamn assumption. How dare you? How dare you tell other people to go and prove their Earth with your assumption and your rules of thumb? Who the hell do you think you are?
You can check and you can verify.
Who do you think you are?
Don't-
Come on, Nathan, calm down. But one at a time, guys. One at a time.
So what I use is
Nick just said is
Catalina.
that he's very willing to use the Isle of Man as an example. As
No, I
to
didn't
how
say
it
that at
functions.
all.
That's
So I thought it might
very
be
interesting
too
because
short.
that's exactly what we've been doing here on this show
No, I
for
didn't even say
almost a year now,
that. I didn't
in
even say that.
detail, applying your system, applying Metabunk.
I think you
seems
seem to be
to be
putting
falling
words
short
into
a
my
little.
mouth here,
Yeah, I
because
agree. I
did
think you
not say
misheard
that at
It's
all.
falling short a little on curvature, especially on the observations
and-
that were like 1 feet high.
Owen, shush. You misheard what he said. He didn't say what you just quoted him as. Mick, what did you say about the Isle of Man?
Well, I'm not sure how tall it is, so I'm not sure if it would actually be that useful. You need something that's about 1,000 feet high at least, because there's
Oh, like Elsa
obviously
Gray, you mean?
problems with refraction.
All right, I think we
when
can conclude this point by saying that you've accepted that it
Problems
was
with
based on an
refraction.
assumption. Do you still maintain that position?
Well, it's the standard model of the
Sorry,
world.
the standard model has no scientific backing. It is an assumption, correct?
Well, it's the standard model. but
Sorry,
also-
the standard model has no scientific evidence. You only assume a value of R. Correct, Mick? For crying out loud, man.
Yeah.
Right, so we can move on. We assume R in your crappy, assumptive, proof of nothing, broken, perspective denying model. So we can move on to the last point, which would be the perspective omission from this broken model that you use and assert is some sort of science, which is absolutely, unequivocally is not.
All right. So with the perspective thing, what you want to get is the angular size of the hidden amount.
No, we take into account things that have perspective affecting them when we use a camera. However, your calculator does not account for that very real viewing functionality, Mick.
All right.
Mick,
So
Mick, let me help here. Let me try and persuade you with what the position is.
no, let me just real quickly ask a question. You talked about apparent.
There's no need for any questions. It's an assertion. This is a matter of fact, Mick, right? Your calculator does not take into account something that every single man, woman and child with eyes, every single camera, camcorder and every video taking piece of equipment ever produced ever takes into effect when they are used, when people wake in the morning, when they look at anything ever. Perspective rules. Yet you have
Including with
not
pinhole
included this in your calculations. This is an assertion. We are not asking anything. We are telling you this. This is a fact, and it is a glaring omission.
Why am I here then? What's the question?
There is
You're
no
here to
question.
address this final point. The final point is that on your website, there is neither a disclaimer or a calculation to address the object size in the distance of what you're trying to apply the hidden value to. The assertion is that you are supposed to tell us that when you are applying your distance or your height to your distant object, that you should not be applying its full size height, its actual height. You should be telling us that you need to reduce that height down to its apparent size to the observer.
All right, apparent size. That's a good term.
Yeah.
What do you measure apparent size in? What units?
No,
Sorry, we take apparent sizes of things when we use a camera. However, your calculator is not designed to match with viewing functionality.
And you want to get the apparent.
We don't want to get anything. I will say it again because it seems you are retarded. Whenever a camera is used, it does take into account perspective by the very nature of it taking a picture of something. However, your calculator does not account for this very real fact of life, Mick.
Well, why would you want to have the?
Why would I want to? I don't want anything. I'll say it again because it seems like you literally are stupid. You seem retarded. Every time we open our eyes, every man, woman and child watching, every single one of the 210 people listening to you behave like a blithering moron, understand implicitly that perspective is a thing. Yet your calculator does not account for it.
Nathan, let me ask Mick a couple of straight answer questions. Let's work on the assumption that all these lampposts are a set size, whatever that size may be. Let's just say the furthest one away is 30 miles. When we use your curve calculator and put the distance to 30 miles, and then we put the observer height in, everybody puts the height of the lamppost as though it's in front of you. And your website doesn't tell us not to do it, nor does it provide us the maths to reduce it down.
Well, hang on, Anthony. You said that lamppost in the distance, that's the same height as the one that's in front of you, isn't it?
No, we are talking about apparent sizes of things, Mick. You see, you disclaimed in one of the notes on one of my videos that you understood perspective. Now you are telling us about the actual sizes of things, shout out to Red Pill Philosophy, rather than the actual size. Now this is the type of view a camera takes into account, yet your calculator does not perform viewing functionality. It takes into account only the actual size and not the apparent size.
Only the actual size, and it shows you the actual hidden amount.
That's wrong. That's
Correct.
misleading, because the only time that lamppost is at its actual height is when your nose is touching it. So therefore, your distance to the observer would be 0. But we're putting in 30 miles away. So
if the distance was 0, wouldn't the apparent height be infinitely high?
No, it would be fixed to the height of the lamppost.
So if you put your eyeball against a lamppost,
Sorry, Mick, your obfuscation here is just ridiculous. Every man, woman and child watching this show knows that perspective is in effect when they look at things, yet you do not account for it. Why are you dancing around this?
Well, because I'm looking essentially at, let's say we took a laser beam.
No,
we're not doing lasers, we're taking photography. This is akin to a perspective view that every man, woman and child, camera and video recorder on the planet takes when they start, when they press record, when they open the shutter, and yet the effect of objects becoming smaller at distance is not accounted for on your calculator because it does not perform viewing functionality.
All right, I'm trying to figure out what the problem is here.
We've told you the problem. Well, are you confused? Yeah, bless him. He's confused. Right, Mick?
Could I ask?
I thought you asserted in one of the comments that you understood perspective.
I do very well.
Right, well, why are you so confused?
Well, I think actually you appear to be confused. I'm not sure if you are.
No, I'm definitely not confused. I understand implicitly, Mick, that when I open my eyes in the morning and observe anything ever, it is subject to perspective, something your calculator ignores. So I'm not at all confused, but you seem to be telling us about actual sizes, because that is what your calculator does. It is not performing viewing functionality, like we do with cameras.
The camera performs viewing functionality.
Yes, it does. A camera takes a picture. It takes a picture of the view, like when we open our eyes, unlike your calculator, which is presented in side elevation, as Anthony is now demonstrating, which is not how we view things.
So, would you like me to explain why I do this?
Absolutely. I don't care why you do it. It's fallacious.
Well, Anthony wants me to explain, but you don't.
I do want you to explain. Why do you show it in an orthographic view when nobody in the real world ever sees anything different to this? And
because,
all the evidence that's ever been produced for scrutiny for the shape of the Earth is always presented like this.
All right. Well, let's think about it in terms of straight lines. Do you agree light travels in straight lines?
Well, not according to your maths. According to your maths, it follows a bend. Look, you have the example here, and you claim.
Well, as again, we're talking about the results ignoring refraction.
We weren't. Anthony's just pointed out that your calculator points out that everything's applicable to a standard atmosphere, a rule of thumb that doesn't link to your reference that you give. So no, you're not going to get to have it your way, I'm afraid, Mick.
So you want to talk about with refraction.
You're now telling us that light moves in straight lines, contrary to the argument you had when we were on point 1, Mick. Are you confused again?
The lines, those blue lines that are drawn of perspective, they're all straight, right?
Correct.
Yeah, you assert that they bend though, don't you, Mick?
So if you were to take...
Sorry, you didn't answer my question. You would assert that they bend through a standard atmosphere, would you not, Mick?
Not at that distance. I wouldn't say they would bend very much.
How far is this distance, Mick?
That distance? Well, I guess the light poles are about, 80 feet apart, and there's about 5 or 6 of them there. So what would that be, like 400 or 500 feet?
Maybe. Could be 4 miles, though, couldn't it?
Well, if you had some very large light poles.
Sure. But the point is, you say that light bends, right? But all these are straight lines.
Yeah. It doesn't bend very much.
Oh, it does. According to your math, it does. 7/6 of the radius of the Earth is a lot of curve.
That's a lot of bending, isn't it, Mick? This rule of thumb seems to have quite a lot of bending. Again, that's quite a confusing statement that you've just made, considering that you've just led the audience by telling them that light doesn't bend and it moves in straight lines. Seems like you engage in double-speak quite a lot. Do you know what double-speak is, Mick?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Well, you do seem to be engaging in it quite a lot.
Well, I'm trying to simplify things, but we can talk about either model if you like, if you want to do the model.
Models aren't the Earth. When we take a picture, Mick, not once do we ever take a picture of a model. We take a picture of the real world.
We just want to know why it is that you haven't taken into account perspective with your orthographic drawing and misled people, because nobody ever reduces the target height of the object down to its
orthographic drawings don't have perspective because the orthographic...
Sorry, I'll say this again. Yes, drawings don't have perspective. We're not taking pictures of drawings, though, are we? We're taking pictures of the real world, Mick. Did you not hear me, or are you confused again?
Well, are you familiar with computer graphics?
Sorry, we're not taking pictures of computer graphics. We are taking pictures of the real world and trying to establish why a calculator that is not designed to be comparable to viewing functions is being used to assert how much blockage there should be.
Yeah, and Mick, by the way, before everybody starts talking again, if Nathan talks, you are going to hear yourself, we're going to hear you, but the actual Hangout's not going to hear you. So there's no use talking over him.
Yeah, don't speak over him because the Hangout won't hear you when you're speaking over Nathan.
Does Nathan hear me?
No.
Well, that could be a problem.
I do hear you. What are you talking about?
Well, no. when I'm talking...
Sorry, Mick, let's get back on track straight away. We have a situation here, Mick. Your fallacious proof of nothing begging the question, perspective ignoring, proof of nothing calculator does not account for viewing functionality. It is not designed to be comparable to viewing things, which is what we have been led by other globers taken in by your deception to believe that that is precisely what it is designed to do. And we are trying to establish why you have deceived all these naive ballers into believing you have a calculator that is designed for viewing functionality when it is not.
Oh,
and
so
Mick,
you are
Mick,
interested? You are
Mick,
interested
I
in
actually
finding
looked
out?
at the link you asked Riley to click on.
Me, I'm not interested. I'm telling my audience about your deception. Now, there may be several ballers out there who we will humiliate. And I do mean humiliate in light of this information, Mick. They may want to know why you have done this. Me, I couldn't care less. I don't care if you're here, if you sod off, couldn't care less. I will, however, highlight to my audience repeatedly that Mick West is the reason you have got this wrong when we humiliate your peers.
Yeah, and Mick, I actually looked at the original link that you asked to link towards. It is a description of the model of how R is supposed to work. It does not contain any scientific proof as to
Actually,
how
it does. If it
anyone
has a link
came to
yes, it
that
has a
Not to
link
talk
to
over
a
people,
Noah
Mick. He hadn't
test.
quite
It has a
finished his
link
point,
to Noah
Mick.
test in
He
there.
hadn't quite
I'm-
Mate. He hadn't quite finished his point. You seem confused about the rules of etiquette. So let Alwyn finish his point, and then you can address his point.
I'm
Is
not
he asking
offering
really
up any proof of R here. I'm just saying I'm using the standard value of R.
right.
Right, so we don't have proof of R from Mick. We already established that at point 2. We know you
Yeah,
don't
we-
have any proof of
He's
R. It's
already
just
accepted
an
it's an
assumption.
assumption.
Yeah,
He
an
has
assumption.
accepted it's an assumption.
No
Well, it's something that
scientific
matches
anything
reality.
in your model, right, Mick? No science involved, just assumptions. We get it. We know.
No, it's a good model.
No, we don't want to know how good you think it is. I'm not interested in the opinion of some idiot that doesn't understand that perspective is something that we all take into account in daily life. Let's face it, you have used your own calculator for
There's
this
no
purpose as well,
references
Mick.
of proof on that site. It's just it's a
Actually,
mathematical
there is.
description of
Did
how
you-
it is supposed to work. There is no references of proof.
Didn't
anything.
you look at the Noah link where they actually do experiments?
Sorry, an experiment, you say? Excellent.
Yeah.
What kind of experiment?
They measure the lapse rate of the temperature and they take observations of how much the atmosphere bends, basically.
What was
This
the
is
observed
for-
phenomena? Sorry, the observed phenomena was how much the atmosphere bends, did you say?
Yeah, this was for refraction.
And what was their
Yeah, but
dependent
refraction
variable?
is
Hold on,
not the
Arwin.
radius of the Earth.
Hold, Arwin. What was their dependent and independent variable in their hypothesis?
Are you asking me?
Yes, it's you who has just asserted this, Mick.
It would be the temperature, I guess.
Sorry, so the cause of the curving of Earth was temperature?
No, that's the temperature variations from the standard lapse rate altered the refractive index of air. I mean, you agree that, air does refract, I take.
Sorry, I'm just trying to establish the scientific hypothesis that they used by establishing the independent and dependent variable that they laid down. Do you understand what an independent and dependent variable is, Mick?
Why don't you explain it to me, just to make
Okay,
sure.
the independent variable, that would be the cause in a cause and effect relationship. The dependent variable, that would be the effect. So we have a cause and an effect.
Right,
So-
okay, so then the cause here is the variations in temperature, which affect the variations in refractive index of air, and the effect is a raising or a lowering of a distant object.
Right, so as I asserted earlier, the cause would be temperature then.
Yes, essentially that's the variable that they're measuring here.
Well, that would be the cause.
Well, yes, but it's obviously more complicated than that because the cause is
No, science is very simple. It establishes cause and effect relationships. And in this instance, it seems the cause would be temperature.
yes, in this experiment.
Right, that's fascinating. Any particular reason why you told us this?
Because it was in the link that I'm
Yeah,
not sure who the
what
gentleman was who
relevance
just
does it
spoke,
have,
but,
Mick? I know this
Arwen.
merry dance of you establishing that temperature causes things to change in the refractive index. So what does that have to do with Earth curve exactly?
it explains why there is such a large amount
I'm
of
asking you
variations
to
in
explain.
what we see
I'm
in
asking you,
refraction.
Mick. You cited this. You surely understand it. Are you confused again?
Yeah,
No,
you
I
did say-
explained. I'm not confused
you
at
did
all.
say
Well,
before
just
that
explain it to
refraction
me then, because so far what I've got from you so far is we have a cause that is temperature and no real reference to Earth curve anywhere, and this temperature causes refraction, correct? That's the independent
Well,
variable.
When you heat up air, it expands and that becomes less dense, and so the refractive index decreases.
That's fascinating. What does this have to do with Earth curve again?
It's not specifically to do with the Earth curve.
Oh, I'll ask again. Why the hell did you tell us all this, Mick? This seems like a pointless conversation. Are you confused about why you've told us this?
76R.
Oh, sorry.
we
It's
were
about.
discussing
Sorry.
earlier.
Oh, so it does connect to an assertion rule of thumb that you made up. This 76R. Oh, right. Sorry. Maybe you can take us through the connection there.
Well, when air expands, it's refracted.
No. Sorry. You've misunderstood. You are confused. I want you to take us through the connection between your assertion, this, what was it called? Rule of thumb, I think you called it. This 76R, the connection between that and this experiment.
The experiment is actually to do with how refraction differs.
Sorry, you don't seem to understand. You obviously are very, very confused, Mick. I'm trying to understand how that is in any way, shape or form connected to your rule of thumb assertion that 76R applies.
Well, I guess it. Yeah.
It doesn't now, does it, Mick? Yeah, we all know.
Obviously, it's not actually about a physical measurement of the Earth for which R is required. So I don't see how that even relates.
Right, Mick. It's not really related, mate.
We're talking about refraction.
Spent most of the show
You're
confused.
talking about refraction. We're asking for the physical scientific proof for the R value.
Yes, that's right, Mick.
And
Do we need to be asking it again very slowly and calmly? What, Mick, is your scientific evidence of the R value used in your presuppositional, perspective-denying, proof-of-nothing calculator?
I've already explained that I just used a standard value.
Oh, right, you just assume it, right? Nothing scientific in it. Yeah, we get it, Mick. It's all very amusing.
It's a calculator.
Yeah, calculators for proving an assumption, right? Yeah, we'll double-check this assumption, because Mick says it's true, right? So it's proof for nothing.
Yeah. Then you can take the values the calculator gives you, and you can use those to verify it in the real world.
What, verify the assumption? Really? I already went over this with you. Again, you seem to be confused, Mick. There's no real point in verifying what you assume, now is there? That was pointless.
Well, why wouldn't you verify your assumption?
Why wouldn't I verify your assumption? Because I'm not a retard.
Well, why wouldn't I verify my assumptions?
Because it's your verification system is based on the assumption. It's a begging the question fallacy.
No, it's a hypothesis.
No, it's a begging the question fallacy. You already assumed the radius. Clearly very, very confused. Very amusing, but very confused. Stupid even.
Perhaps it might be a good idea to consider moving back to the point in question, because we don't appear to be gaining ground here at all.
No, I don't
think
mind.
we are.
I'd rather just summarise the facts of the matter, which is that we've gone through all of the relative points that we wanted to ask Mick, and that was about, first and foremost, his fallacious assertion that there is any connection whatsoever to the link that he puts on his website between 7.6 radius, which he asserts as a rule of thumb, and the actual atmospheric conditions that he links to on his site. There is no connection. It's just totally fallacious. That was point one. Point two, the science behind his calculator is trying to prove an assumption, and it's based on an assumption to begin with. So he starts with his assumption, trying to prove his assumption. It's called a begging the question fallacy. So he has no scientific evidence of the R value. It's just based on what people have told him, apparently. No science to back it. Bad news for him. Last and not least, he has absolutely no explanation whatsoever for his total omission for perspective in his calculator that is in no way, shape or form designed to perform viewing functionality, which is exactly what a lot of idiots, who we're going to be tearing a new one soon, have been using it for. So, total fail on account of Mick West. And with that, I think I'll probably round out the show. So I'll say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in, hopefully sharing this debate and super chatting. And of course, a massive, enormous, huge thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know what to do. But if you hated it, consider sharing it with a friend and maybe subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!